and what are lambda expressions in, and what are the delegation pathways in the Kotlin. So starting from, some of you might have done these pathways, which are shared by your ADSC facilitators and your leads. So if you are getting any doubt or anything, you can just put your doubts in the comment, or you can, you if you have access to the mic, you can speak up to us. Now basically starting with the condition, the conditionals, they are just, we define the conditionals like if this happens, then print this, and if other thing happens, then print that. So conditionals are the commands basically. They are the decision making commands. The code is dynamic, in which you can put anything and you can trace out any conditions in that. Like if the traffic light is green, then you can say that you have to go or not. If this red, then you have to wait. Like this, you can make a good condition program. Now let's take the simple example analyzing a condition. Here the condition is based on the weather. Is the weather cold? Like if you are moving out, then you have to make some decisions. Like here it's a rainy season, then you make decisions either to take umbrella or to leave at home. Now the same it is the weather cold? If the weather is cold outside, then you will wear a jacket. Otherwise, you will not wear a jacket. Like this, we are going to make the conditions. Now we can also make nested conditions, like in the traffic lights. Is the traffic light red? If it is red, then you have to stop. But there are four more options. Either it's yellow, green. Now, if the traffic light is yellow, then you have to move slow. If the traffic light is green, yeah, you are free to go. And if the color is different, here it's an invalid. Now, basically, this is an example in the Kotlin how you are going to write the code snippet for printing the condition. Like here, I have checked in the third line, if the traffic light color is equal to red. Now you have print stop. Now, in next part, I've used else if the color is changed or it's any other color. Now, this is a greater approach where we use when command. It is same as the conditionals, but in conditionals we define if else slider, if else. In when approach, we only put when, and then we put the conditions with their checking statement in the same body of the when. The when uses a particular parameters, or you can say it's a variable type. If you are printing the condition, then you have to print the parameter which is defined with the when. And if you are returning some variable to the function, then you have to return that parameter or the variable that you are using as the when parameter. Now here is the example. In the third line, you can see that I've used when traffic light color. I've checked all three conditions within the same bracket. Like red, print and stop. Yellow, it's printing slow. Green, it's print go. Like the using when is very simple. You can just have to trace out your main condition. If the condition is satisfied, then you can print. If the condition is not satisfied, then you can give a different condition. That. Now this is the basic thing. When the statement doesn't need the else branch. Yeah, it's right. In when you can put all the conditions within one branch. There isn't any if else. Like if you are using a if in a very long outlines program, like you have to write 200 or 300, then if you are then going to use if else, so many brackets, then also you might be getting mistakes. So these are very exhaustive. Whereas when you just have to write the conditions and print the same in the same line, that's going to work very easy. Now the same I've told you earlier. If you have to print, then you can use println, or if you have to return, then you can return. Like here in the third line, when traffic light color, this is the parameter, or this is the value of that which we are going to assign to the variable. Like the condition has met red, then println is printed. If you are returning the message, then the traffic light color will be returned to the caller function, which is calling that function. Yeah, this is when without println. This will also work if you are not using a println in the when like red stop. It will simply print or it will simply return the value to the user. Either you can print within or you can print outside the loop or where the function is called. These are the basic things. Now starting with this, what are nullable and non-nullable objects? Like you have seen in Java or in any other languages, we get exception called null pointer exception. So the null pointer exception is basically this only. In the Kotlin, we doesn't have this. We are trying to make the Kotlin as user friendly as so all the variables are not null by default. So this means we cannot assign a null value to a variable because it will throw a compilation error. So for these, we have to define the two nullable and non-nullable variables. In one, we have to print the value, we have to return the values, and in second, they are the references type. Like your class and interfaces, either you leave their body empty or you write something, they aren't going to affect anything. They are considered nullable by the default. But for the values, that variables if you are returning, they are the not null values. If you are returning some variable, then there must be either it will be -1 or it is a 0 or it will be some value that you get by calculating the program, but they will have a value if you are returning or printing that. Now the same thing, nullable variables may either contain a valid value or may not. In the later case, they are considered to be null. Like if the value is not variable, then they are nil value. The same with the non-nullable variables, they will always have a value. They cannot be nil. Now this is example. Variable il in 32, it's a nullable by default. And the button values, like you are putting a button in your app, so the button does not require any value. They are the just UI of the app. If you are using the widgets button for that, they also doesn't require. They only have a state. Either it's you can say it's a declarative or non-declarative state that is going to work. You don't have to put any value for that CSS and widget. But if you are going to return the value, then you have to get the value and you have to give them a value. Now, how to handle these null variables? There are various methods. We can use a null check. Null check is based on if else expression explicitly, but this option works only where the variable is immutable. Like if you are changing the values of the variable, it isn't going to work because again and again you have to go to that if else program, you have to change the condition, then run the program, then check the nullability of this. So the null check condition works where the value is immutable. In the second safe call operator, it's another type. This executes any action only when the reference has a null value. If you are passing a variable and if it's a null, then it will work. Otherwise, this will return a null value to you. Like if you have some value and if you are using this operator, then the value of that variable will be returned to you. Otherwise, it will give you a null value. We can all, this is a very simple method. Mostly all of use this safe call operator because it's a single line operator and it is easy to remember its syntax also and it's easy to use in the function. Now using let method. Let method works with that safe call operator, act as a null variable. Like if you are trying to return let method, then this is basically the same as the safe call. The safe call uses the theorem that yeah, the value is not null. Then the let method assigns the value to the function which is calling that method. Now going to the fourth, it's using also method. The also method is execute additional operations like logging and the printing of the null variable. Like if you are making the log of the where the null values has occurred, then the also method is used. It will just the all are used in the context with the safe call operator. Safe call operator has got the value. It's the null value. Then safe call operator will not return. The control will come to also method. This will log into the logger, or it will simply print the value, whatever it is. Now these are the four conditions where we can check the nullable variables, they are nullable or not. Now moving to the object-oriented programming. Basically, you all know what is an object-oriented programming. We are studying it, and everyone knows like encapsulation, what is inheritance, what is polymorphism, what is abstraction. The Kotlin is also based on that value. The same function works. Now here, these are the simple things you might be knowing it already. But as to if anyone want to say something about the object-oriented programming, yeah, he can put in the chat, or if Mike is there, he can speak up.
Anyone would like to share their thoughts on object-oriented programming or any views on it? Or if you know any concept in that, you can always unmute and speak.
I have left something. I missed out something.
Okay, Raj, you can continue.
Yeah. Now, what is defining the programming? Defining a class. A class is just it's the blueprint of your whole program. A class contains methods, your identifiers, your final variables, your, your printable statement, your main function. The class is like its example, the class of students. Now everyone has a name, everyone has a function, everyone has different characteristics. It's the same as the real-time example. Like a class consists of three major properties. A parts, they are properties. The variable that is specify the attributes of the class are called class objects. Methods, constructors. The methods are the functions in which you have to define your behavior of the class. If you are making a function of class of add, then the function must add the values and return to the caller. And the construction is a special member function. The construction is same as that of the class name. You can assign variable to the final variables or to the class variable in the construction. This is a simple example of a class. Like class is smart device, the body is empty, and the function main. Now this is the diagrammatic representation of the constructor, or you can also say it's an object. Like I have made the object of the class that is a smart device. This will same work as the constructor. Like what value you are using as an object, and the class name. Now basically what is an object? Now object is a blueprint. It defines or it's called the method. If you are in the other function in the visibility of your class and you want to call the function, now you can use the object variable for that class to call the value in your class. Like as in a real-time example, if your teacher asks to call the student from the other class, then one of you go to that class and ask that student to come here. It works as the same. Now how to define the class method? The class smart device. Now I have made the method fun turn on. It's just how to turn on the device. Now println smart device is turn on. Yeah, work is done. Other function fun turn off. Then print smart device is turned off. Now, as this I have explained earlier, calling a method. Class object, this is a dot operator used to call the current calling object, method name, and any optional parameters. You can either give this parameter or you can leave that parameter. As example, fun main variable smart TV device equal smart TV device dot turn on. Like in the previous, I'm calling that turn on function to turn on my smart device from the other function that is I have called in the main function. From the main function, I can turn on the device or I can turn off the device. Now the class properties include basic function and the most important function that is getter and setter. In Kotlin, they work as same in Java and the Kotlin both. The setter is used to set the values of any variable and the getter is used to get the value. They are auto-generated code. You don't have to write. You just have to write setter, their syntax, and the same. Now, for example, the property name in the class company and the data type name is string. We shall initialize it with some default value, the same. If you put the value in the setter, then you can call that value from the. This is a basic syntax: variable name, data type, initialize, get, body, whatever you want to get, and then return to the main function. Now set value. In set value body, you have to give what the value you want to return to the get statement. Like if you are taking a variable value, then you set the value as of a equal to 1. Then in get function, you can call that value and you will be getting 1. Now this is the example as I've told earlier. The variable name is string, it's empty. I have called get field. So you can see the get field is equals to value and set value I have field equals to value. Now in get field equal I have used so the value which is assigned to the field would be called here in the third line which is get. Now what is a constructor? The primary purpose of constructor is to specify how the objects of the class are created. Constructor initialize an object and make object ready for use. It's just a simple. Now the types of constructor. The constructor can be a default constructor or it can be a parameterized constructor. The main difference is that in default constructor, the parameters are not present. Like in the previous, we have called that smart device. Just we haven't used any parameter. They are the default constructor. And in parameterized constructor, as you can see, we have to give the values like variable name string or variable category string. Now here variable device status equal online. So we can use that string which is assigned to them, assigned to val name to here. This is the example of the parameterized constructor. The giving parameters is must necessary, otherwise it will be going to a default mode only. It will work without the parameters also, but it will be working as a default constructor. Now relationship between classes. This is basically the concept of inheritance. Like if one class inherits a property of other class, then that class will become child class and the property from where it's inherited, it will become the super class. Like you have inherited some of your properties from your father, some of your behaviors from your parents. So you are the child class and your parent will be the main class or the super class. The main motive of the inheritance that if you have written a code in the main class and you are making another class, then you can just call that class to your main class or child class. The main basic use is that it can be the code can be reused. Like this is a diagram presentation. Super class is a smart device. It has two inheritant objects. that is smart device TV and smart light device. The smart TV device is the child class or the subclass, and smart light device is a subclass. The smart device is a superclass, which is also a parent class. Now the syntax is easy. The class, subclass, optional parameters, either you can put the parameter or not. And in the same bracket, you have to define the other class. If you are making two class, you can either make one, you can make two, or you can make three. It depends on your code and what you are doing. Like here, for example, the smart device TV device name string, device category string, and other parameter. Smart device name equal device name, category equal device category. The same, it has defined the string value to the device name and other string value to the device category. Now coming to another concept, which is the visibility modifiers. The visibility modifiers are basically based on the encapsulation. Like you cannot call one of your class to the other class. It's basically just the same. In a class, they let you hide your properties and methods from unauthorized access outside the class. The same. In the package, they let you hide the classes and interfaces from unauthorized access outside the package. The same as in the Java, the same here. We have four visibility modifiers, that is public, private, internal, and protected. Now the public is the default modifier. All the methods and the properties which will be you will be using outside the class also. In the private, the declaration is accessible in the same class. You cannot import your code to the other class. In protected, the declarations is accessible in the subclass. Like if you are inheriting, then you can use the protected. Those inherited class will only be able to use that declaration from the parent class. No other class can accept that. And internal modifiers, they have to make the declaration in the same module. If you have a 2-3 module, then you can use the internal modifier in that, but you cannot call those variables to the other module. Like a smart device module I have made, that is for the your lights and the bulbs, and other smart device module I have made, that is for your TV, to computers. Then internal modifiers, what value you have made in your smart device which are working on light or bulb, you cannot call them to your TV. That's the main difference. Now, this is the property delegates. If you are doing your pathways in your Google developer profile, then you will be getting these. What are the property delegates? The property delegates is the granting of any authority or power to another person. Like if you are giving the variable to call or use the other variable within the same work. The person who delegates the work remains unaccountable for the outcome of the delegated work. Let's also have the three things, that is lazy property, observable properties, and vetoable. In lazy properties, these are basically comes under the lambda function, which I will explain later. The lazy properties is basically the property to implement input and return an instance of lazy. By default, the lazy is synchronized where the value is computed. Like if you are first calling the program, then the first call the value is computed, and the same value will be returned on other calls as well. The value is not going to change. If you are calling if you are calling a add module and you have given only two numbers, 2 or 5, the result will always come 7. Either you call it 2 times or you call it 100 times. This will same work with the lazy properties. Now the observable properties. The observable properties, it just notifies the user like the changes you have made into class during your handler. It will be containing the changes, logs of the changes, and in observable properties, you have only the two arguments to initialize the object with a new property or the handler, like which value is handling that variable and what the new property has changed. Like if you have made a change, then in which part of the code or in what property you have changed that code. Now in variable, it allows you to modify the value when the argument inputted by the user fulfills the specified condition. Like it can be used in place of observable properties. Like you have changed the values in the observable and the handler will maintain the record. But in the virtuable, the argument inputted by the user, if it specifies the condition, which is a predefined condition, then it will become the observable properties with additional features. Like its additional features will be, you will be able to modify the program or the command, or you will be easy to notify the value. If the condition is met, then it will be notifiable. Now, starting with the new topic, what is lambda expression with shorthand syntax? Now, the lambda expression is a simplified representation of a function, like the functions you make in your program. It can be passed as a parameter, stored in a variable, or even returned as a value. Now, using of the repeat function, the Kotlin repeat statement is used when a set of statement has to be executed n number of times. Like you are using your for loop, while loop, the for will run until the condition has met, the while will also do the same. Like I less than 10, then I will increase, it will go to 10, then function will stop. The same works in Kotlin, but the syntax is changed. Here, if you are want to perform the same function again and again, either the printing of the value or you have to return some value, then you can use repeat function like repeat for print hello world, then the value is printed 4 times. It's just the same as your now. Thank you. If you have any doubt, you can just ask now or you can put in the chat.
Yeah, okay. No doubt. So Shreya, you can continue from further.
Okay. Hello everyone. Myself Shreyamani, and just wait for a minute. I'll share my screen and then we can start. So let us start.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. Let's start. So now I'll be taking unit 2, pathway 2 and 3. And this units basically deal with interacting with UI and states. So I'll be explaining you about what are states, what is interacting with UI, and what are the projects that we need to build in this unit. Also, if you have any doubts, it will be great if at the end of the session you ask it together, because as I already mentioned, I won't be able to check the chat box right now. So let us get started. Firstly, what time is it? Okay, can you all unmute anyone? What time is it?
6:40.
Yes, 6:40. Okay, but according to me, I think it's time to create something. And today we will be creating 2 applications. Like we won't be creating those applications in this session. In this session, I'll be clearing some information about the concepts that you will be using in that application. And then after this session, you can work on those pathways and you can create 2 apps of your own. Works? Yes?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. So there are 2 applications as I already mentioned, and they are a bit different from the one that you made in the first session, like in the last session which we had last Saturday. So this is the first application that you will have to make in your after your session on Code Labs. So in this application, uh, even after looking at that, it is very clear that it is rolling a die. We all must have played many games in which involve rolling a die. So what is the simple mechanism? What happens when you roll a die and how do you take decision? Can anyone answer that? No one? किसी ने बचपन में सांप सीढ़ी नहीं खेला क्या? Okay, so basically when we roll a die, what happens? We calculate the number of the number of dots which we
Hello,
have on the
Shreya.
top.
Shreya.
Yes.
I guess your slides are not presenting.
Okay, is it visible now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Achha, so maybe I guess you were not answering because the slides were not visible. So now I expect answers from you all. So this is the first application, as I've mentioned, which will involve rolling a die. So what happens when we roll a die physically is we have to calculate the number of dots or the number that is present on the topmost face, right? And that is the number of moves that we will take or something. So this is one of the most important factor when it comes to games. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the first application that we will be making, in which a user will roll and then we will get the output or the number of dots, and then we can get what is the number. Second app that we will be making or that you will be making is calculate tip. Whenever we go to hotels or whenever we go to any place, for that service, we give them some amount of tip, right? So for that reason, now it at times it becomes difficult to analyze, right? For this hotel, how much tip should I give, or for this situation, what is the amount of tip I should give? So for that, developers have made this solution where you can just enter the bill amount and then accordingly and tip percentage, like what percent of the amount you want to give as tip, and then you will get tip amount. If you want to add more features, you can add how good was the service, and on basis of that you can decide the tipping amount. But this is the basic structure that we have got from Google developers. That is, if the bill amount is 200 and if you want to give 20% tip, then obviously the tip amount will be 40. So these are the two apps. In the first app, rolling a die, is in your pathway 2, and this tip calculator is in your pathway 3, and this is your end goal, that you have to create these apps. So how are these apps different from the ones that you made earlier? I hope all of you remember that you made a greeting card application in the first session, which was conducted last Saturday, right? Yes. So last Saturday, we made an application which displayed happy birthday to someone from someone. So how are these two applications different from that? Now, if I make an application which will just display an image and write happy birthday to someone, how is that different from a normal image which says happy birthday to someone? So the extra features that we wish to add in an application are what are provided in this. Here, the user is interacting. The application is interacting with the user. The user is clicking on roll and then he's getting an output. Or the user is entering an amount and then he's getting an output. So the major difference is they are interacting with the application is interacting with the user. And that is like the next level thing that you'll be doing in this app. But when interaction with users, or when the application's interaction with user takes place, so one of the most important thing is which data you have to store, which data you have to remember, and which data you have to forget, right? If let us take your example, all of you must have filled a Google form or must have filled any amount of form to attend the session. So if we conduct 4 sessions, and for every session in the form, we have similar your name, your mail ID, your age, your date of birth, and say 10 to 12 parameters. And then we have a question, how many sessions, which all sessions you wish to attend. In that you click on session 1, session 2, session 3, session 4. Again for session 2, we roll out same form in which you have to fill all the details again. And again you have to click on session 1, session 2, session 3, session 4. And if this continues for 4 sessions, so the end user, that is you, will not be happy, right? That I have to fill all the things again and again, over and again. It would be better if this application would have stored my data and I would just have to give my name. That my name is Shreya. If I enter Shreya, then they will get, you have filled for 4 sessions, then you can join, you'll get the link. Which one will be convenient, filling the form over and over again, or the system will store your data, will remember your data? Come on, people, these are like really easy questions.
The second one.
Yeah. So if we are already storing the information, so that will be easier, right? But then if there is another app which calculates the BMI of a person, and if for that application we have, like, I enter my name Shreya, I enter my weight and height, and then I get a BMI value. And if this application is like, okay, पिछली वाले में उन्होंने बोला था save किया हुआ better है, so I'll also save the data, and it will save a particular XYZ amount in BMI for Shreya. So next time, if I reduce weight, if I increase weight, if my height increases, if the parameters change, and then when I enter Shreya, it will give the output same BMI. Shreya hai to ye BMI. So that is again, that will be, end user will be sad, right? So for that purpose, we have to take decision ki app mein where we have to store data, where we have to forget data, where we have to remember data. And for that purpose, we have this concept of state. Before that, like we need to know few things. What is state? A state is any value. Now, aage ka session will be a bit more technical for few slides, and then we'll go back to the previous slide of both apps, and then we will decide like what will be the plan or what will be the steps of action to build that app. So what is state in Compose? A state is any value in an app that can change over time. For example, in rolling a die, once you roll, your value can be 3. Next time you roll, it can become 4, 5, 6. It can change. That value is not constant. So a state is any value in an app that can change over time. All Android apps display state to the user. So these are the few examples where the state changes in Android app. For example, a bar that shows when a network connection can't be established. In that, the state, your network, 3 dandi, 4 dandi, everything, they are variable, they change. They are not constant, right? Or a blog post and associated comments, they change. Like a new user is entering a comment, so the total comment count or the one which is at top, at bottom, it changes. Ripple animations on buttons that play when user clicks on them. You must have seen these features, or we also had that wallpaper wall application in which we have water, and then wherever you click, you get the ripple of water. That is for user interface. So these are the states which change. So state is basically a value in an app that can change over time. State and composition. Compose is declarative, and as such, the only way to update it is by calling the same composable with new arguments. These arguments are representations of the UI state. Anytime a state is updated, a recomposition takes place. As a result, things like text field don't automatically update. A composable has to explicitly be told the new state in order for it to be updated accordingly. So in this, what they are trying to say is the arguments are any data that has to be updated, we have to recompose it. Recomposition has to take place for a state to update itself. So here is an example. You can see, is the code visible to everyone? I'll take it as a yes.
Yes.
If you run this code, you'll see that nothing happens, because here what we can see, this is a simple composable in when we make functions, sorry, yes.
I think the state and composition slide is visible.
State and composition slide is visible. Okay, I'm on the next slide. Can you see the code wala slide?
Yeah, now it's
Yes.
visible.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, great. So this is the slide. This is the code where we have declared where we have this composable with name hello content. In this, these are some basic things that we have in a composable modifier. This is used to set the padding. Here we have 16. We can have 32, 8 or anything. And in text we have hello. Modifier mein again this is padding and style. In outline text, if value change, we don't have anything like remember or any other. Sorry. So here on value change it is blank, and in label we have text name. So what happens if you run this code? You will see that nothing happens. That is because text field doesn't update itself. It updates when its value parameter changes. Here the value parameters do not change. Okay. And composable functions can use the remember API to store an object in a memory. As we have already discussed, at times we have to remember the data, and at times we have to forget and have new data in that place. So here for to store an object in memory, we can use the remember API. A value computed by remember is stored in the composition during initial composition, and the stored value is returned during recomposition. So initial composition, you're storing some value, and that value is returned when you are recomposing. Remember can be used to store both mutable and immutable objects. And here you can see this program Here we have mutable state of, which is used. And in this, you can like, once you remember, you use this remember, during initial composition, you are storing some value. And then during recomposition, you are returning that value. And then there is one another important concept in state, that is state hoisting. What is state hoisting? State hoisting in Compose is a pattern of moving state to a composable scholar to make a composable stateless. Basically, we are making a composable stateless. The general pattern for state hoisting in Jetpack Compose is to replace the state variable with two parameters. For here you see, if we have value t, the current value that is to be displayed is t, and on value change, t unit, an event that requests the value to change where t is the proposed new value. So here this is the new value. So on value change, we will get another value. However, you can use even other things. On value change is just one example which you can use for state hoisting or to change to make composable stateless, to make your composable stateless. State that is hoisted in this way has some important properties. Single source of truth. If like the purpose why we make state, why we make our composable stateless, and what are the important properties that we have. One is single source of truth. By moving state instead of duplicating, we are ensuring that there is only one source of truth. This helps in avoiding bugs. For example, if we have a application which is storing the database of marks. So if we make a duplicate copy, it is possible that at end while calculating something, it can create confusion, right? But if there is a single source, if for Shreya there is only one mark, there is no copy of Shreya, and there are different marks in different domains. Like English Hindi ka marks upar wala Shreya mein, and then physical education ka marks in the copy created. Then calculating total average or any other application is difficult. So to avoid this and to avoid bugs, we have a single source of truth. Encapsulated. Only stateful composables will be able to modify their state. It is completely internal, and so this is another property. And shareable. Hoisted state can be shared with multiple composables. In previous slides, we have seen one composable, but if we want to use it in multiple composables, then hoisted states can be used in multiple composables. Restoring state in Compose. Use remember savable to restore your, again, one thing which I would like to tell, for some people, they may find this very overwhelming, like so many new terms, and things are not very clear to you. But when you open your pathway, and when you open the code lab and your pathway, you have like very clear instructions for every state where you will actually apply these things, and then these points will become very clear. Like this slide, if you once you solve your pathway and then you come to this slide, you will understand everything in a better way. The purpose of this is just to give a gist about the concepts so that you can solve your pathways. Use remember savable to restore your UI state after an activity or process is recreated. Remember savable retains state across recompositions. In addition, remember savable also retains state across activity and process recreation. So now let's get started with actual ideating on what are the steps that we will have in our application, like the two applications that we have to make. For that, these were our two applications, right? Is my two application screen visible, or is it stuck somewhere else?
No, it is visible.
Your voice is not clear,
It's
my dear. Hello?
It's visible.
It is visible. Okay. ठीक है. Okay. So these are the two applications that we had to make. Now that you have some idea about state in Compose and about the about state in Compose basically. So now let us think of the steps that will be essential in making this application. Okay. So firstly, one thing that you can see in this application, what we have is a image. This is the image, and below that we have a button, right? When you click on the button, the image might change and you will get the output accordingly. And these two things are in a line, they are in a column. So while you define your composable, while you make your composable, in that you will have a column Because when you will see this in the code lab, you will get confused. Here column Q hai, so I'm explaining that. In that, you'll make this in a column in which this will be on top and this will be on bottom. Again, here also you can see, here we have a text. Here we have input like number input. And then here we have a text again. And these all are in a vertical line, right? A vertical column. So this will also be made in a column. So starting with the first application, for this, what will be the step? User is going to just click on this button, right? User is going to click on the role button. So what? Just a minute. User will click on this button, and when he clicks, we have to give an output from 1 to 6 on this. For that, the logic is, there is one command where you can choose a range, and then if you write random, you will get a random value in that range. Like if I write 1 in bracket, I write 1 dot 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 6 and then random. So I'll get a random value from 1 to 6, which is to be displayed here for the output. So once that is done, we will have 6 images. One which has 5 on it on the topmost side, one which will have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Like that, we will have 6 images. And like from the previous function, we have got one random value, either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then, as Raj has already explained, if and else statement, or we can also use we can use if and else statement. So if the value is 1, then we will display the image which has 1 on the top. Else, if the value is 2, then we will put the image which has 2 dots on the top. Similarly, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is this clear? What will be the step? First, user will click, and on click, we will have a function which will give a random value from 1 to 6. Our range has to be 6 because on roll you cannot get output more than 6. So if we get a number from 1 to 6, then we will use the if-else statement in which we will display the image. Is this clear what you will be doing in your first application?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So when you go through code labs, again, you will get all the proper syntaxes and everything. If the concept is clear, then syntax you will easily make. There's no doubt in that. Now moving forward to the calculate tip app. So to calculate the tip for a particular place, what we will do here, first step that you will have is to display text. This calculate, you will make a column. In that, first you will display calculate tip. This is a text which is not going to change, so you can display it directly. Then we will take input values, bill amount and tip percentage from the users. You will make these two text fields in which you will take value from user. And here again, one thing, in this you did not have to remember any data because all the numbers were different. Like once you roll, you get a thing and you display. Here you will, and even in this application, you won't have to remember anything. You will so what happens in this, you will take input bill amount and you will take tip percentage. After that, we will apply the logic of what is the formula for calculating the tip. In this, the formula is basically 20% of the bill amount. The tip amount is 20% of the bill amount. And then you will display that tip amount. So here, in one step, you need to save the value, right? Like with user, once user has given 200 as the bill amount, you have to store it and you have to use it to calculate 40 as the tip amount. And once that is done, even this application will be ready. You know the steps, you will know the syntax in the code lab, and then you will be able to prepare these two applications. Once you make the application in code lab, like you complete all the labs, you have to, as you all already know, you have to give a quiz and then you will earn a badge on your developer profile. And by that, we will be done with our second and third pathway and ultimately with the unit 2. If you'll do the first, second and third pathways in unit 2, you will have your badges and that will be all. So were the things clear? Like what are the things that you will have to do? Or do you have any doubt about how to make your application? Okay, so if everything is clear, then we can conclude this session.